Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. My name is Eternize, and in this video we're going to talk about 5 mistakes that a lot of people make when creating a hardstyle kick. Before we get into the video, I want to quickly suggest you check out my preset and sample packs. Now that you're interested in hardstyle kicks, I think you'll be surprised by the quality of the kick pack. There are also some free ones, the link will be in the description. The first mistake is to think that your kick needs compression. So many people are commenting or contacting me about how they should compress their kick for it to get fatter or to get more in front in the mix. And I get it, because when you look at a waveform of a hardstyle kick, it visually looks like it is squeezed together or is compressed as you would think. However, when we talk about compression in audio, it has nothing to do with the actual sound or the squeezed look of a hardstyle kick. Compression in audio is a tool to manipulate dynamics, or in other words, it is used to turn the volume of a sound up or down depending on the incoming signal. But turning the volume of your kick up and down is never going to get that compressed feeling that you're after. So you can compress your kick as much as you would like, but it will never change the actual sound of the kick. So what's the solution instead? We need to use clipping. Clipping is gonna give it that compressed visual representation, but it's not gonna fix all of your problems. In the end, it really comes down to how you got to the core sound of your kick with EQ and distortion. Either way, compression is not the way. Another mistake I see a lot of beginners make is to make a tail that is way too static. In other words, there is a lack of movement. I spoke about this before, your kick needs movement. In the context of a track, if a hardstyle kick lacks movement, it will sound boring and it will lack energy. Here's an example of a kick with and without the incorporation of movement. So here we use a cutoff filter to gradually cut away the higher frequencies. This creates a movement in the tail and makes the kick very bouncy, as opposed to just being static throughout the length of the tail. This is typically what you want to achieve with a classic kick. And with a modern kick, you would typically incorporate a reverse type of effect towards the end of the tail to create movement that way. Whichever type of kick you're making, always make sure that the kick is evolving throughout the length of the tail. Here's another one, using a snare as part of the punch. I get why people tend to use it. It's a good filler for the punch in that it has a lot of high frequencies that are very compact and punchy. It's very accessible too, and it gives you a pretty good and quick result. All good, right? Here's what I don't like about it. In the case that you would want to use a snare along with your kick, which you want in a lot of cases in hardstyle, you risk running into phasing issues. Here's what I mean. So here I use a delay effect to delay one of the samples slightly, just to demonstrate how a real-world scenario could look like after you have exported your kick and put it to use in a project. You could hear how the two snare samples are clashing and result in a phasing effect. You see, even though the snare might only be a small part of the combined sound of the punch, the information is still there. And you might say that, well, then I'll just refrain from using that specific snare sound in this project and I'll be fine. And to that I'll say yes and no. What you'll find is that because these samples have been resampled so many times today, more than just one sample will cause you phasing issues. My suggestion is that you try to avoid it all along, especially because there are other options to explore. For example, you can create the same type of sound using white noise, or you can duplicate your punch, put a reverb on it and shape the sound into something similar to a snare sound. This way you'll have something unique and you'll never risk running into phasing issues. Creating a hardstyle kick is one of the very few exceptions in music making where going back and forth between plugins to make micro adjustments is the normal progression towards the end product. Usually when producing, you would insert a plugin with the anticipation of a specific effect, and when the effect is achieved, you barely touch the settings afterwards. However, with hardstyle kicks, you have to get used to the fact that you don't know what's coming. Settings that benefit your sound in the now may very well hurt the sound after a couple of distortions. That's why it is so important to go back to plugins earlier in the chain and adjust as you go. Who knows, that one little change might turn your kick into the unachievable noise controller's kick. Too many people are stuck with the idea that the next plugin they insert has to improve the sound further. But what they really need is to go back and try some different settings. Keep that in mind. The last mistake I want to point out is that people think that they can just import their kick, change the pitch, and that's it. It now fits perfectly in the mix. I've yet to make a track where that's the case. You will always need to make changes to the kick after you've imported it into your project. I'd say that you would be unusually lucky if every aspect of the kick is fitting the track. The things that I typically adjust in the project are the EQ of the punch, the EQ of the tail. This typically depends on how bright the lead is. The low end, a lot of times you need to tame the boxy frequencies around 200 to 300 Hz. This becomes important especially after pitching. The overall volume of the kick, and then I typically apply some clipping after pitching, just to make sure that it is at the same level at all times. I'm not saying all of these settings are a necessity in all cases, but really I've never made a track where I didn't adjust some or all of these parameters in the project. So don't make the mistake and think that you're all done after pressing export in your kick session. Before you go, don't forget to check out my preset and sample packs. New content is added all the time, and I'm positive you'll find something that will improve your sound. Link in the description. Let me know if this video was helpful by commenting your thoughts below. If you want more content and help me out at the same time, go ahead and subscribe. That's it. I'll see you soon. Bye.